Hey guys, as some of you already know, we have officially provided support for the Convector Rest Server. The idea behind the Convector Rest Server is quite simple. You create the smart contract, and based on that specification and mapping JSON that you have to create, we can automatically generate a REST server for you to integrate with anything that you want. You may integrate with things like Java, C#, or even already running servers like Salesforce and SAP. So in this video, I want to walk you through how this works and what you can get from very simple use cases to much more complex use cases. So the first thing that I need is a Convector CLI generated project. So I just need to open a terminal, and inside of that terminal, I need to type conf, in this case new, and the name of the smart contract that is going to be called car. I just click enter. Inside of this folder, it will bootstrap my whole project. So let's go and get inside of this new folder that was generated called car. And now that I'm in there, I can see all the files in there, and I can proceed to open my preferred code editor. In this case, I use Visual Studio Code. This new project bootstraps everything for me, so I can go and check the files that are inside of the source code in this car cc folder. So here's the controller. As you can see, it has already a function, and I also have a model with some default properties in this class called car. So let's open the terminal and resolve all the dependencies by typing npm install and then enter. So now I can see that in this case, Visual Studio Code already resolves the dependencies in terms of Convector and other packages. So the first thing that we actually need to configure the REST server is to go to the root of the project, and we will create inside of this path a new file that is going to map my specification, the smart contract specification, to the API. So let's create this. It should be called api.json. So in here, I will need to set up a structure that needs to map to my controllers and my functions. So let's split the screen in here, and let's check what we have inside of this in this controller. So the logic is quite straightforward. Per each function that I want to expose, I need to create a new object in this list, in this JSON list. So the first parameter that I need is called function. So it's basically the name of the function that I want to expose. I need the HTTP verb that I'm going to use to expose this function. So in this case, create is a post. And then I need to include the name of the controller so that I can map out to the specific file. And in this case, it is called car controller. By default, a smart contract created with the Convector CLI only has one function for me. So what I will do in here is to make things a bit more complicated. I'm going to duplicate this function, but in this case, I'm going to create a new one that is going to be called get1. But in this case, the parameter that this is going to retrieve to receive is going to be in a string. So first import jup to be able to validate that string type so that I can see what is coming from the outside. And I will replace this type for a string, and there you go. Now I'm going to call the car model and call the static function get1 and put in there the parameter. So there you go. Now we have two functions that we can be able to expose in our API. So going back to the JSON, I need to again set up the function name. I need to set up the verb. In this case, this is different. This is going to be a get. And then we need to set up the controller that, as the previous one, it is the same. It's called car controller. But if this is the case that I have multiple controllers, I can map them out in here. So that's it. Those are all my prerequisites. So I can now, first of all, you needed to install the Convector Rest API util. In the comments, I'm going to let the command to install it. But now I can do conv-rest-api, generate API. and I need to pass the parameter for the name of the chain code. In this case, this is called car, and I need to pass the file that is going to set up the configuration. So in this case, this is called org1.car.config.json. I can paste this in here and just click enter, and this will take the specification of the smart contract, and voila. Now I have this new server. Let me check in here. I can see inside of packages a new folder called server. I have the package JSON ready for this server to get started. You can see the dependencies, and inside of the source folder I can see that there is all the necessary files, such as environment variables, a file to connect with Convector inside of the smart contract, and also I can see the specific app.ts that is going to start my server and route all the endpoints of this new created API server. So I can see inside of the router all the paths that were created for me. When these are get functions, I can see that this is going to set the parameters in the URL. And inside of the controller's TS file, I can see all the functions that were created for me. Again, these are created automatically based on the configuration that I did before. Going back to the terminal, I need to bootstrap the project so that I can resolve all the dependencies. In this case, resolving from the server to the car.cc package that has the smart contract specification. There you go, it takes just a few seconds, but now this is ready and I can proceed to run a local blockchain network to start calling these functions and these paths, these endpoints from the REST server. So the first thing is to start a local development blockchain network, in this case with Hurley. So inside of my root project, I need to type npm run env column restart, and this is going to start the server for me. Once I have my blockchain running here, I can run docker ps in case I want to check what was created for me inside of Docker. I can see all the components and so on. And now what I need to do is to install the smart contract. So I need to run npm run cc start / car, and this is going to go to that network and install the source code that was auto-generated for me. So I just need to type enter and wait a few seconds while this starts and resolves all the dependencies for my smart contract. As this process finishes, and it may take a few minutes depending on your internet connection, I can now go again to the terminal, and in this case I need to run npx lerna run start. In this case I set up the scope for the server, which is the name of the package that is going to run the REST server, and the parameter stream to see the logs. So I just need to type enter, and a few seconds later, there you go. Now you officially have a REST server that is mapping to your blockchain network and that is running in the port 8000. Now create a new terminal console, and in this one what I'm going to do is to make some web requests to that endpoint and to officially start using the blockchain network. To keep things simple, I have this curl request already built. In this case, I'm telling to call the path localhost 8000 the endpoint car/create that I can see in here, and I want to tell this that this is going to receive a JSON and that it's going to be a post request as stated in the configuration of the router. As well, I'm going to send a JSON parameter that has an object called car, and inside of this one I have the specific structure for my model. So I just need to type enter, and a few seconds later, and the first request may take a few seconds extra because this is initializing other containers, installing the code as well to emulate this on every organization. I will see this model that I have in here created in the blockchain. There you go. Now let's make a get request, and similar to the previous one, we will make a curl request, in this case to retrieve the new model that we just created. Now I also have this pre-built for me. I'm going to call the endpoint get1 with the parameter, and I'm going to receive a JSON, and the request is going to be of type get. And pretty much immediately now I get this model that I just created previously coming directly from the blockchain network. So I can obviously take this URL and make the call through something like Postman. So let's create a new window in here, and I'm going to make the pretty much same request to the localhost 8000 port, and let's go send. And there you go. Now I have this model in here that is coming directly from the blockchain network, in this case through Postman. So as you can see, without much hassle, you can create a REST server that is going to expose all the smart contract directly from any blockchain network in Hyperledger Fabric. The goal for this util is that you can easily get started, and then you can take the baseline code generated for the server and you can extend it all you want. Just be aware that if you create or regenerate the backend, everything, all the customizations that you made will be erased. So try to make the customizations after you have a lot of the smart contract generated, things like authorization or creating extra middlewares, because usually when you are developing, you want to regenerate everything, but after that you probably don't want. So as you can see, it just takes a few seconds to generate a new REST server and no single line of code.